Marcus Whitmore has always avoided Christmas, believing it to be a pointless holiday, but this year his plans fall apart, leaving him alone in a huge apartment. An unexpected invitation to spend the holiday with his housekeeper's family leads him to a world where there are no expensive gifts, but there is sincerity and warmth. There he meets Clara, a girl who does not admire his money, but challenges him. But when Marcus begins to understand what is really missing in his life, past fears and social barriers threaten to destroy everything he has just begun to develop. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. Marcus Whitmore didn't like Christmas. No, he wasn't the one who grumbled about the holiday rush or got angry about the garlands hanging in every store. He just didn't see the point. People bought unnecessary gifts, smiled even if they didn't want to, said warm words that they would forget in a day. For him, it was just another day. Every year in December, he went somewhere where there was no festive atmosphere. Quiet beaches of the Maldives, hunting lodges in Norway, even expensive villas in Italy. The main thing is that there is no Christmas tinsel. Traditionally, he was accompanied by David Lawrence, his best friend and perhaps the only person with whom he could relax. But this year, things didn't go according to plan. "Brother, I'm not going." Marcus froze with the phone in his hand. "What? You know I'm not going to hang around here alone." David sighed, and even over the phone, Marcus could imagine him rubbing the back of his head, preparing to explain. "Listen, I'm in love." Marcus snorted. "So what? You've already fallen in love 10 times this year." "No, Mark. This is serious. I want to spend Christmas with her." Marcus exhaled and looked at the huge windows of his penthouse. Through them one could see evening Sao Paulo, shining with lights and full of life. But his own life at that moment seemed not just empty. It literally rang with silence. "You're leaving me alone. You're abandoning yourself, Mark. We've been doing this for 10 years. Maybe it's time to try something different?" Marcus felt a slight anger rise inside him. "Do you mean that I should now sit in front of the fireplace and sing Christmas carols?" David laughed. "No, but maybe instead of running away, you could try just being here?" Marcus turned off the phone and threw it on the couch. The huge apartment, filled with expensive furniture, seemed infinitely empty. There was a bottle of aged whiskey on the table, and next to it were the keys to a private jet, ready to take him anywhere. But for the first time in a long time, he didn't know what he wanted. After a couple of hours, he finally decided to do something to distract himself. After going downstairs, he headed to the garage where his collectible cars were kept. Having chosen a black Aston Martin, he simply drove through the streets, watching the city lights. Sao Paulo lived its own life. People hurried home with gifts, smiled at each other, decorated Christmas trees in their apartments. And the more he observed it, the more he felt like an outsider. When he returned home, he found Rose in the living room. She had worked for him for over 10 years, first as a nanny, then as a housekeeper, and now she was the only person in this house with whom he could talk. "You're not flying away this year?" she asked, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Don't know." She nodded but didn't ask any questions. Unlike everyone else, she never pressed him with questions. But this time she smiled slightly. "Or maybe you want to come to us?" Marcus raised his head. "What? For Christmas? My family is gathering at our house, as always. It would be nice if you came." He thought about it. Usually he would have laughed it off or refused right away, but for some reason he didn't do it now. "I don't think I'll fit into your company." Rose laughs, but there is no mockery in her gaze, only warmth. "You know, you're not as special as you think you are. There are difficult people in our family too. You just haven't met them yet." Marcus snorted, but something in her words made him think. "I will think." Rose just smiled. "You won't think. You'll come." After she left, Marcus sat in silence for a long time. For the first time in years, he didn't run away from Christmas right away. And this meant that something inside him had already begun to change. Marcus Whitmore was hesitant to go until the very end. He was not a man who liked change. And even more so, a person who likes to interfere with other people's family traditions. But Rose said it so confidently that at some point he simply stopped resisting. When he arrived at the address that Rosa had given him, the feeling of unreality only increased. This was not an area of elite mansions, not a closed territory for the elite. It was an ordinary house in a quiet neighborhood with a modest but well-kept veranda decorated with a simple garland of warm light. Children stood on the porch, laughing and throwing snowballs at each other, and the smell of cinnamon and baked goods wafted through the windows. Marcus stepped out of the car, pausing for a second before heading towards the door. He didn't know what was waiting for him inside. When he entered, the first thing that struck him was the noise. Loud laughter, conversations, the sounds of dishes, everything was filled with life. People walked around the house, chatted, some helped set the table, some lulled the baby to sleep. Marcus. Rose walked up to him with a wide smile, quickly wiping her hands on her apron. I told you that you would come. Marcus chuckled. It seems I had no choice. Absolutely right. As he walked further, everyone started turning around. Of course, most people knew who he was. He was Rose's rich boss, the man they were used to seeing on the covers of business magazines, not in their modest home. But no one looked at him with sycophancy or fear, rather with curiosity and slight wariness. Rose told me so much about you, but I thought you were a fictional character, a female voice suddenly said. Marcus turned around and saw her. Clara. She stood at the kitchen door, leaning against the frame, her arms crossed. Tall, with dark hair, wearing a simple burgundy sweater, but with the bearing of someone who knows her worth. She didn't seem enchanted by his presence. Rather irritated. I didn't know I had fans, Marcus chuckled. Clara shrugged. I wouldn't call myself a fan. More like a skeptic. Why? Well, Rose thinks you're a good person. And I don't really believe in rich good people. Marcus smiled but felt something inside him clench. He was accustomed to flattering speeches, to interest from women, but Clara did not try to please him. She was not impressed by his money or his status. And that's what hooked him. Do you always greet guests with suspicion? Only those who were not used to being among ordinary people. Marcus was about to answer, but at that moment they were interrupted by the children who began to pull at his sleeve. Will you play with us? Asked a boy who looked about 8 years old. Marcus looked at him, confused. Play? Clara rolled her eyes. Yes, a board game. Can't billionaires roll dice? Marcus smiled and sat down at the table, accepting the challenge. That night, for the first time in a long time, he felt like a man, not a businessman. He talked, laughed, even lost at board games. But most of all, he watched Clara. She didn't seek his attention, but the more they talked, the more he realized that she was not just another acquaintance. She was the one who could see right through him. And this scared him. But it was even more attractive. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so out of place and yet so alive. Everything in this house was different. People didn't talk about business, deals, status. They were just together, laughing, arguing, sharing stories. To him, accustomed to the cold silence of his penthouse, everything that was happening seemed chaotic, but there was something real in this chaos. But what interested him most was Clara. She was completely different from the women he knew. He usually didn't have to make an effort to make an impression. But Clara was in no hurry to be charmed by him. She didn't smile at him out of politeness. She didn't try to please him. And this irritated and at the same time attracted him more than he expected. You look uncomfortable, but you don't want to leave, she noted, sitting down next to him. Marcus chuckled. Do you always read people like this? Only those who are used to wearing masks. Marcus thought for a second. And what do you see? Clara paused, looking intently into his eyes. A person who is accustomed to power, but feels like an outsider among ordinary people. Marcus felt something inside him tighten. He was used to people looking at him with admiration or envy. But Clara saw right through him and it baffled him. You speak as if you know me. No, but I know people like you. Is it true? People who are surrounded by everything, but have nothing. Marcus wanted to say something in response, but fell silent, because her words touched something deeper than he wanted to admit. He turned away, pretending not to attach any importance to her words. But from that moment on, he could no longer ignore her. At night, when most of the guests had already left, Marcus went out onto the veranda to be in silence. He was used to being alone, but today it seemed different. He didn't want to be alone. And as if hearing his thoughts, Clara appeared next to him. Do you always run away from people when the party is over? Do you always stalk guests? She smiled but didn't answer. They were silent for a few seconds, looking at the stars. And then Clara said quietly, You think you're comfortable in your life, but in reality you're just afraid of something else. Marcus looked at her but didn't argue, because somewhere deep inside he knew she was right. Marcus never thought that one night could change him so much. He came here with the confidence that he would spend a few hours, pretend to be polite, and go back to his usual world. But now, as the evening drew to a close, he felt a strange emptiness inside. It was as if he was on the threshold of something important, but was afraid to take a step. Clara was the cause of his confusion. She didn't try to interest him, but the more he talked to her, the more he was drawn to her. She didn't flirt, she didn't try to look better than she was. She didn't try to impress. And that's why he couldn't stop thinking about her. The next day, when he woke up in his huge apartment, the silence weighed on him more than usual. Before, he thought he liked being alone. But now in his house there were no sounds of laughter, conversation, or the smell of hot chocolate. And he missed it. He tried to forget about it. I immersed myself in work, went to a meeting with investors, signed several contracts. But thoughts about last night did not go away. And the most unpleasant thing was that he couldn't stop thinking about Clara. In the evening he called David. "Do you still hate Christmas?" he asked with a grin. "Let's put it this way. I still don't understand him. You went to see Rose after all, didn't you?" "Yes." "And how do you like it?" Marcus fell silent. And then he said quietly, "Too real." He didn't want to admit it, but it was the truth. Previously, he avoided everything connected with family traditions, emotions, and attachments. He built walls around himself, convincing himself that he didn't need anyone. But one day he found himself in a house where everything was built on love, and his own walls began to crumble. But his fear turned out to be stronger. When he saw Clara again the next day, on the street near her work, he felt a tightening inside him. She smiled, but there was wariness in her gaze. "What are you doing here?" "I was just nearby." "Really? Marcus Whitmore is just walking the streets of my neighborhood?" He laughed, but couldn't find what to answer. Clara paused, then said bluntly, "You're afraid that if you like me, it will change something." He froze. "What?" "You live your life as if attachment is a weakness. As if letting someone into your life means you have to change something." She smiled, but there was no mockery in that smile. "But maybe it's time for you to change something." He felt hot and cold at the same time. He is used to controlling everything. Business, deals, even people around. But he couldn't control her. And that was what scared him the most. He wanted to say something that would destroy her confidence. But instead he simply said, "I'm not sure I can." Clara shrugged. "Then don't waste my time." And she turned around and left. Marcus watched her go, realizing he had never encountered anything like this. She didn't try to convince him, didn't beg, didn't play hard to get. She just gave him a choice. And now everything depended only on him. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something. For the past few days, he has been trying to get back to his normal life, work, business meetings, investors, reports. But all this no longer made sense. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Clara. He tried to convince himself that it was just a passing fancy, that he would soon forget her as he had forgotten many others. But there was something about her that didn't give him peace. Something real that he couldn't get out of his head. On New Year's Eve, he got into his car and just drove off, without a clear goal, without understanding what he was going to say. He just knew one thing. If he doesn't try, he will regret it all his life. When he arrived at Rose's house, the lights were on in the windows and voices and laughter could be heard inside. The family was together again, celebrating and rejoicing. Marcus stopped in front of the door, feeling his insides tighten. What if he's not needed here? What if he's late? But before he could turn around and leave, the door opened. Clara stood at the threshold. She looked at him without surprise, as if she knew he would come. "You thought for a long time." Marcus nodded, not knowing what to say. Clara sighed and crossed her arms over her chest. "Did you come here to say you're afraid? Or to do something about it?" He took a deep breath. For the first time in his life, he was not sure what he was doing. But he knew one thing for sure. He doesn't want to run away anymore. "I came to tell you that I want to start over with you." Clara didn't smile right away. She paused, studying his face carefully. "Are you sure that this is not just another entertainment?" "Yes." "Do you understand that this won't be easy?" "Yes." "Are you ready to change?" Marcus looked into her eyes and said something he had never said before. "If that means you'll be there, then yes." She smiled but didn't say a word. She just stepped towards him and hugged him. And at that moment he realized. For the first time in his life, he feels truly happy. He didn't run away from Christmas that night. He stayed where he really wanted to be. And for the first time I felt like I had found home.